Hello everyone. We're going to start again. Sorry if you're just in the last one, just had some technical glitches and I'm going to be starting this over. So welcome everyone to my stream. Again, sorry for any technical glitches we just had in the last one. All right, so this is my live stream. I'm giving it or I'm starting to do some live streaming. I think it'll be exciting and fun to walk you guys through how I build apps. I've been building apps for a long time. I've been with Xamarin since 2011 and been building mobile apps since 2008. As soon as the iPhone came out, I got really excited and started building apps. And one of the first successful apps that I built was gMusic. gMusic is a music app that streams music from Google Music. And it's has a long history. It goes all the way back to the MonoTouch days and was built originally pretty poorly and has been rewritten a few times over the years. And it's pretty exciting. I love working on it. I love music, so working on music apps really exciting to me. One of the things that is really exciting about gMusic is the history of it. When I first started, during one of my rewrites, I decided I should make it cross-platform. It was during the Xamarin days, and gMusic was only iOS only, and this being this music player, it should work on both iOS or Android, and even Mac and things like that. And so I started working on a project of how to make it cross-platform. And the most interesting thing about that is the library that I wrote to originally bring gMusic cross-platform was the project that later became Xamarin.Forms. A lot of the things that I learned and did during that later was Xamarin.Forms, the first version of it. And the funny thing is, I've never finished it and never truly made gMusic cross-platform. And then as Xamarin.Forms evolved, I never went and made it or ported to Xamarin.Forms and still not fully cross-platform. So I'm going to go through and work on this series. I'm going to plan on building this out and making it cross-platform. And that's super exciting to me, and I can't wait to get this up and going. So before we get going, I'm going to jump over and just show you the existing app just to familiarize you guys with the UI that I'm planning on building and making all this happen. So let's switch over to code. Wow, as soon as I do that, I get crazy echoes. I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong. What's going on? Hold on. Let me check something on my stream. Okay, my echo's gone. No, it's not. That's still really weird. I'm just going to deal with it. All right, so this is gMusic. It's really simple. It's got a kind of complicated UI in the end, but it has artist, albums, lets you listen to music, lets you search, and lets you just interact with your music in interesting ways. I like that it has this navigation that's a master detail, very similar to what you would have in a typical Xamarin.Forms app. But I also have this bottom drawer. And this bottom drawer is what's really exciting. My UI is not updating. This is a failed stream. I'm really sorry, guys. You can't see what I'm doing. This was working really, really well during my test. And of course, now that I go to show it to everybody, it falls apart. Can I fix this from here? Okay, let me just switch videos. Hopefully my UI is now updating. Or I might start and stop the stream again. Something with I'm using one of those external Elgato streaming deck things to try and do the encoding on my Windows machine, but it is freaking out. And my UI is now updating. Perfect. My echo's worse. I'm going to ignore that for now. And actually, let me see if I can mute that, if that'll fix it. All right, let's hope this is good. Let's hope that my UI is still updating. It is. I think I've got it figured out. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. I'll get through this, I promise. All right, so yay. Thanks, Ben, for following. So now we have this complicated UI. It's got two different master details. This one's for the now playing. So if I was to actually go in and press play on a song, ignore the errors playing. We'll deal with all that later. But yeah, it now shows this. This is actually a collection view, so you can switch between them. And so it's got a little bit of complicated things, and I'm really excited to try and build this now in Xamarin.Forms. So I'm going to stop that project. To do this, though, I've done File, New Project. This is a new Xamarin.Forms project. I used a tab, and I've updated it to have everything of the latest dependencies, and let's run it and make sure it goes before I get going. All right, pressing play. And it should come up. Perfect. Hey, we have a tab view. Everything looks right there, about perfect. All right. So to start out, there's a couple dependencies that I always bring into my projects when I'm starting out. This is very, very useful for gMusic. Two of them are both my libraries. Hey, there's Bounty. All right, and I'll add simple auth, and I'm also going to add simple database. So to build this music app, we need to be able to download and get some data from Google. This data will be like the song, all the song metadata, and even like get the songs to actually stream them. So simple auth is going to deal with all of our authentication and our web API calls. And then simple database is a database layer that I wrote that sits on top of SQLite.net. So it gives you everything you're used to with SQLite.net, and then also gives you a few extra things. And those extra things, you'll see why I do that. It makes it really, really easy to do the UI. All right, so let's go and do one more thing with these. I should probably add Xamarin Essentials because I'm going to need that too. Let's get that added in. Also, there's the chat room going on. Please don't mind interrupting me. I will answer any questions you guys have as we get going. Or if something doesn't look right or is a little different or just don't understand, feel free to ask and I would love to explain it. All right, so I've added these initial NuGet packages that we're going to use. And let's add a new folder in here. We're going to call it data. Finished accepting all of these terms. And almost hopefully done with those terms. To start out with this, I'm going to write a lot of code fresh and live. But to start out, there's a couple things that I always copy. I'm going to copy in just to make it easier. I have the old gMusic. I'm going to go into data, and we're going to steal this database. And we'll walk through what it is and how it works. So database, perfect. So comment that out because that doesn't exist yet. Comment this out. I'm also going to go steal my locations. We'll need that. Copy that. All right. Now I'm going to need to copy out all of this because we don't have any object models yet, but perfect. All right. So my database class, screen stopped updating again? This is killing me. Okay, if I click this, thank you for telling me. I really need to figure out what's going on with this. I had it all working before I started just to make sure. All right, screen, is it updating now? Hopefully yes. And hopefully this isn't too far behind. And it's all black. I'm going to restart this little Stream Deck thing. And let's hope I don't have to restart the whole stream. Not Stream Deck, the HD capture device. One more go on this. If it fails again, I might switch it all over to my window and just do it all from my Mac so I don't have to add this extra complex layer. HD capture. Yeah, everything else is good. Just wish you could see my screen consistently. Okay, we can see my screen. This is great. Let's hope this doesn't happen again. Let me kill this test pane so we can see more code. Okay, so I've just brought over two files. One is my database file, and it just subclasses simple database connection. Similar to what you do if you're doing a normal SQLite database, it has that SQLite connection. It's the same thing, has the same overloads, works the same exact way. Nothing's really different there. What it does do is it adds a couple convenience methods, which we will be using, and allows us to do some interesting things with our data models. When we were showing that app, you'll notice that the songs and the artist and everything is grouped. You notice they're alphabetical, and we have the quick jump, and it's quick, it's smooth. We want that, and we don't want. I just hate writing lots of code. So everything I do, I try and make it as small and as simple as possible. So that way it's really easy to build these apps and I just don't have a lot of headache with them. So I have my SQL database connection. I have a static instance of it, which is great because I can override it if I'm doing tests or want to swap things out, but I'll just use this one. And it creates a new one called database.main. I do have this locations helper that I use to figure out where everything goes. Just makes it nice and easy for me. I have some if iOS and OSX stuff. I'm going to remove that, and we'll deal with that later. This all was shared projects, and I could just do an if def like that. All right, so we have our database. Let's get into the good stuff, and let's start adding in some authentication and some web calls. So I'm going to create a new folder and call it APIs. And inside of here, let's do add new file, and we're going to call this a Google API. All right. Now we're going to use using simple auth. And then also do providers. So inside of simple auth will ship with like OAuth and standard basic authentication, things like that. But one thing that's really magical about it is I also ship a bunch of providers that fill out all the nasty details for you. So I can just say I'm making it a Google API, and oops, don't need that. Oh, I should not call it the same thing. That is confusing. I don't know why I did that. Normally I call this gMusic API. Let's rename gMusic API. Everything should be happy now. All right, gMusic API. Now, the first thing it's going to ask me for is this identifier. The reason I do that is it automatically caches things for you, all the login stuff. And so once someone's logged in and then we need to deal with refresh tokens, it will deal with that for you. But it'll let you have multiple instances of these APIs. So if you allow someone to log into like 10 accounts and aggregate all the data, we need to keep all those tokens separate. So the identifier is letting you know which instance, and that way we can reload it on the next launch. For this one, in gMusic, I typically make these integers and just auto increment them all. But for now, we're just going to call this Google. The next one is the client ID. For now, we'll just say client ID. Of course, authentication won't really work without it. Client secret is not required. You can do it with or without depending on which one you want to do. For now, we're just going to say we're passing in the client secret because for Google Music's API, it actually requires that. Let's just also say we're going to pass in what scopes. Hey, I just got a new follow. Thank you. I can't read it from the other screen. My screen sharing stuff's all freaking out. So not going to worry about that right now, but thank you for the follow. Hopefully this will continue to be informative and I can fix my technical issues later. All right, for now we're just going to say we're asking for their email. It's good enough to get up and going, and we should have something going on there. All right, so we have some scopes. Now what's amazing about Simple Auth, is how simple it is to use and then also how you use it. So we're going to add a public async task, and on here we're going to just say get songs. Okay, you can add these things into here if you want. Oh, a Sweeky! Yay! Good to see you, Sweeky. All right, so now that I have these on here, you can either add these things into the API or you can use them when you're calling the API. The API has a bunch of REST things built right into it. So I can say like this dot, and you can see them all. There's like post, put, get. We're just going to do a get, and you can pass in the type you want to deserialize. But for now, we're just going to have it pass back a string. By default, I'll just give you a string. So var JSON equals get. Perfect. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this in here for right now because I want to do this in the view model so we can actually see it working. Perfect. So let's jump over to this items details. It gives It gives us a view model. This view model has a couple things built right into it. It has this busy stuff. I'm actually going to remove that. We're not going to need that. I don't care if it's already running. My stuff has some little smart stuff in it anyway, so we'll ignore that for now. For now, we're getting stuff from this data store. Oh, it froze again. This is insufferable. All right, properties. All right, I think I'm going to return this little capture device because it's just not worth it. It's a software bug, obviously, but hopefully it's now back. I know how to fix it quickly, guys. So we're in luck. Just ping me when we're at. So I'll go back to the gMusic. I just make the API call. We're going to jump over to this API or over to the view model now. And I'm going to just create the API here. This isn't how I normally do it. We'll fix it all later as we get going. But for now, I'll just say gMusic API. API equals new gMusic API. All right, perfect. All right, everything's updated. You guys can see that. And actually, I'm going to take a step back and do one more thing. Sorry, I'll be a little this keeps confusing me with all this disconnecting stuff. I have these client IDs here, and I don't like checking them into my GitHub repos for obvious reasons. And it's like one of the ways that I like to deal with that is by adding in a new class. So we're going to add a new class really quick. Actually, not an existing file or add new file. We're going to call this one API constants. All right, make this thing internal and static. And right here we'll do public static string Google Google a client ID. And the biggest thing is when you exclude things that have these, if you exclude them, then when people clone your apps, they can't build them. And that's equally frustrating. Hey, make sure you go add this magic file. And or when I add it, if you include it, you always forget and you check these things in. All right, so this thing's going to hold our little secrets for now. So now I'll go over to the API and we'll change this thing over to API constants.id, API constants.secret. All right, so we're just going to call those. Now, as I mentioned, this file is now going to be checked into our repo. We will keep it there, and we're just going to leave it empty. So if anyone clones this repo and runs it, it'll just magically work for them. But for me, I still want to have access to my keys, and I want to have my keys in there. So what I do is I go into here, and I'm going to just copy this file to the root. So there's a copy of it at the root. I also have this other API constants target that I'm going to copy over. And we'll open this in VS Code so you can see what it looks like. VS Code, yeah, so what this does is it looks and checks if in the very root of this project, if it can find a file called apiconstants.cs. If it can, it's going to use that file. And let's just make sure we differentiate these two. Let's open this one, and we're going to say foo and bar. All right, so now we have these. If we jump over, let's close this. We don't need any of these things. I have too many things open. Grab that. So now we'll jump over and we're going to edit our CS proj. Again, VS Code, rate editor. I'm going to throw in here imports, go back, API constants.target. And you can change this to be, it doesn't have to be API constants. You can change it to be whatever you want. It's just make sure that when you do, you fix it in here so it knows how to look this thing up. But now that I've done that, if I go back Oh, we also have to remove the original one. I didn't do that. So I'll just tell this one to remove so it doesn't double add it. Let's file, that didn't do it right. Always mess this thing up. Let's try it one more time, see if that fixed it. All right, so we have it right here. Let's remove this because we don't need two of them. Why is it instantly re-adding it? I did it wrong. What did I do wrong? Okay, so we just added in API targets. API targets is right here. It says check if that exists in the root. It not. It just does a condition on whether it exists or not to whether to add it. So let me remove this, remove the old one. I wonder if I have an issue with that. Save it. Go back. All right, so let's remove this first. Remove from project. Okay. Now let's go in here and add this. And where's that remove at? That didn't update. Maybe I'm in the wrong one. One last try. Open this in VS Code. API constants remove. Let's add it after that. I wonder if the order matters on this. So now, hey, it's working. All right, so now we have foobar. Now, if I was to, of course, move this one into our Android folder so it doesn't exist there. And now if I reload that, easiest way is to unload and now reload. I totally nope, I did not mess it up. Hey, it's there with the one without our secret. So let's move this back one last time now that it's working. So the key was to remove it first and then make sure the include does it after the fact. So now I can unload this, reload it one last time, and it's now using the foobar one. Beautiful. So we can check our secrets in without actually checking them in. And I just make sure I exclude, don't forget to exclude this file from your Git. And then you can never check it in and you always have it there. And you can throw lots of little things in those. So really, really useful. It's how I deal with not checking in my API keys. All right, so we now have our API. It's set up. It should work. We're going to jump over to our items view model. Livestream is not updating again. I noticed quickly though, so I'm going to fix it. We see code again. It's updated. It's kind of annoying to have to keep looking right to check that, but I'll deal with it and fix it later. So now we have our API, and our API has secrets, and we are going to just jump into this execute thing, and let's just comment this whole thing out because we don't care about any of this stuff. What we'll do is we'll now say var JSON equals API.get. Right, that's what I called it. And we're just gonna, I wonder why I didn't get IntelliSense on that. Let me rebuild it. Things to figure out. Okay, so our API will have this. Oh, we need to await that. And I'm going to really quick jump over to Dropbox and grab a file that we'll use for an API. Copy link. All right, let's hope I fix this link right. If we change the www.dl and change this to a 1, oops, it should give us the raw JSON from this file. So let's end var console. I totally don't have we're gonna have to restart because I think all that unloading and reloading really messed up IntelliSense. Doesn't like doing it too much. All right, so let's do that. Let's now run this guy. And I have an error. Failed to restore packages. Which packages? Let's try one more time. Now that I had a chance to restore. Oh, right. Oh, I have a var there. That's not right. And that should be a capital. See why I need IntelliSense, just like everyone else. All right. So this view should auto run this execute stuff. I'm pretty sure that's what it does. It runs this somewhere. It does something to load the data. Wrong one. It calls this execute on appearing. Perfect. So it will execute that and call our API. So let's run it really quick. Make sure that we're making a request. You'll notice all I had to do is api.get, pass in a URL. I can set a path so that way it uses the root path so you don't have to have a whole hard-coded URL in there. I can do just /songs. That would work as well. Let's get this up. Hey, let's do this one more time so you can see how that worked. And put this on that exception. What will happen is this app's going to launch. As soon as it launches, it's like, hey, we need to get some data. It calls api.get. You'll notice it popped up an authentication screen. I didn't do anything. I didn't tell it to log in. It just knew to log in automatically. And the reason is I default everything to secured and logged in. If I wanted, I could just say authenticated equals false, which the default is true, saying this is an unsecure endpoint. I can just hit it, and then it will call that without presenting that UI. But that UI, no matter if I'm on the background thread, doesn't matter. It will automatically present that UI properly. And if you want to do it completely custom, you can hook in and deal with the presenting of that UI at a global level or API.showAuthenticator. You can tie into this thing and deal with presenting the UI yourself if you'd like. But on web views, it's really easy for me to handle that for you. So I will auto present that UI for you. Let's run this again and get some JSON this time. Hopefully JSON. If I would have canceled that instead of continuing, it would have thrown a task canceled exception. So that way you can handle whether you require the users to log in. Hey, we're getting JSON. Exciting. All right. So we're going to start out by inside of our models, let's add a new Google song. This will just be temporary. We'll use it for now. Public string title. This has has a title on it. It has public string artist, and it also has a timestamp. But for now, we're just going to go with title and artist. Everything's still updating. Let's jump back over to our view model now. And I can now just change this to be list. I can do a list, or I'm just going to do a song. Google song array. And now if I run this, like magic, I should have an array of stuff. How do you say it? I say JSON. What do you call it? JSON? How would you say it, David? It's like my good friend, Jason. All right. So, I doubt I will fix it during this stream. And what did I do wrong? Because Jason... That would be awesome if Jason did speak up, but I doubt he's watching. He has moved on. All right, so I totally messed something up. I think I named those, or I think I named... That really should have worked. Squeaky says Jason too, so I win. That is really, really weird. Let's remove that so it doesn't cast it anymore. And I want to look at that data. It's been a while since I played with this data properly. Let's make sure it's something good. All right, so it is an array of objects with artist, timestamp, track ID, and title. My Google song is a class with title. For kicks, I'm going to do this in two steps. JSON.to. So simple auth ships a couple of extension methods. I'm going to be changing this API design in simple auth eventually, so you can swap it out to other things, but I should be able to just do to object and say Google song. Now I just want to see what's going on. Hey, I heard something cool. James is following me. Hi, James. All right, I'm getting an exception. I didn't add JSON.NET to my projects. That would make a lot more sense. It froze again. Don't worry, I will fix it. Yeah, James, this Elgato game capture thing is killing me. All right, so let's add JSON.NET, and now my JSON serialization should work. I thought it was an automatic dependency. I'm on a Mac using the Elgato thing on Windows. And it's USB 3.0. It's a good Mac. I mean, good PC. It's got good stuff on it. It worked. This is what I used when we did our testing before. Just today, it's started doing weird stuff with the audio, and it was being mean. All right, perfect. Make sure JSON.NET is added everywhere. All projects. Okay. Let me up my target to 9. The default one does that, and it's not letting me add packages. That's why we got that package failed earlier. Missing targets. All right, so I've added JSON everywhere. So now it won't throw an exception on me. And we should be able to deserialize data. Hey, we have songs, yay! All right, so let's now, and all of that has messed up my syntax highlighting. All right, I am going to end this. Now we'll say observable. We'll just say, well, let me reload this. I can't work this way. Save. Load it. All right, so now we're going to change it instead of being items, we're going to change it to be a song everywhere. And now we can just say ignore you. We don't need to deal with all that stuff. We will say this is going to be really slow. Actually, yeah, we'll just do it. Why not? We will say for each item in songs. I don't like this. Oh, it's still called JSON, because why not? Add item. This is done. Oh, it's called the Google song. All right, Google song. All right. So now we should have some data displaying, if we're lucky. And then we will change a few things around to make it nice and it's pronounced JSON. I get that, but I'm still going to call it JSON. All right, yay, we have songs. It's going to add all these in. Everything's updating. This is going to be slow to add those in. There was like 1,000 or 10,000, I don't remember. There was a lot. So this isn't the way I work. It's really slow to work that way. Yeah. Is it still iterating those? It is still iterating those. That's horrible. So slow. The reason is this thing is an observable collection, so every time we add one, it sends this big old notification saying, hey, I've got one, so it's refreshing the UI in every ad. It's really, really slow. Observable collections are cool and all on small data sets or when you need them, but we don't need them. We're going to kill this thing. Let's forget all this nonsense, and we are going to make this thing fast. All right. Kill this, kill this. Let's jump over and let's start dealing with our database. For now, I'm going to keep this here because why not? Let's create one new model, and we are going to call this model song. Actually, instead of doing this here, I'm going to remove this, and we're going to bring some data over from old gMusic. The reason is music is hard. I will stand by that because you think about data coming in and dealing from different data sources and where data can come from, it gets crazy. So we're going to need a base model. We're going to need song. Actually, we're just going to bring over base model, a media item base, and it's going to complain like crazy that I'm going to missing a couple other things. I think I'm missing some extension methods. Add new folder, and we'll look at what's in these things. Don't worry, I'm just not gonna drop everything in really quick and leave it at that. Did I spell help right? Okay, I did. Always embarrassing when I misspell that stuff. All right. Best thing about spelling mistakes, though, it's security by obscurity. No one can look through your code. All right, and I think I need this extension. And now I think it will build. Please build. No, missing an interface. All right, that's in models. You'll notice I don't have many interfaces, but they do show up once in a while in my code. They have their place, just not everywhere. All right, yes, we are getting somewhere. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to always just call that refresh command because we can write these nice and efficient to where it doesn't matter. We can call this a bunch of times. Every time the screen appears, why not? All right, so now let's go into here and we're going to add a new file and we're going to call this song. Now, there's a reason I want a song and not just having Google Song. I want to bring in data from multiple places. Think about all the metadata on an MP3. You have artist, you have album, you have title, you have year, you have just too much data. It's just a big flat file, and that's not too useful for me. I want to make sure that we put this data into a usable format. So for now, I'm just going to leave that in there. We'll deal with that later. I'm going to add in one more overload. We need the base one, or base constructor, and then we're going to do string title, string artist. All right, great. Into this, we're going to base and just pass in that title. We'll look into what that does in just a second. Public string title, or no, artist. All right, artist equals artist. Perfect. That's a good enough song class for us to get going. We have that. Let's jump back over to our model now. Let's first go to the database and uncomment this thing because I want to be able to have this song in the database or it will blow up and it's not updating again. Let's catch you guys back up. All right. So I have to tell it to refresh the device somehow. And so I can switch off of it and back on, and then it reactivates. It keeps deactivating itself somehow. I have no idea why or when, or it's weird. So I think I'm going to ditch this external one. And if I go this route, buy the internal one, because this is very painful. I like the idea of being able to bring it and using it on a laptop, but it's not worth it. All right. Database. All right, so let's jump back over to our song. So my song thing is really small. Thanks, James. If you can find the issue, that would be great. So I have the song. We're going to get the artist and the title. It's not connected to a hub directly into a USB 3.0 port on the motherboard. And it's the only one on that bus, I believe. I'm good about separating those out, the high stuff. All right. And I'm on default settings too. Let's jump into this media item base. Media item base is very useful. This is going to be the subclass for songs, artists, albums, genres, basically anything that we're going to use. Hey, Adam. Because this will be very useful for collecting the data and putting it into our database. As I mentioned, simple database makes it really easy to group data and bring it out in a really fast fashion. It has the same things from from SQLite.net you're used to seeing. And right here, I have indexed and primary key, and then I have this index character. From our old app, you'll notice that this quick jump stuff, this is the index character along with these section titles. And then I have a group, but that's the group by. This is new with simple database. The other one I have is an order by. This tells it how to do the actual ordering inside of each of those groups. Oh, it could be something with the NVIDIA overlay. I can go to the experience. Let me just check that really quick. I'll keep talking about this while I'm loading that up on this other screen. All right, so the order by tells you how to order by. What I do inside of gMusic is I'm going to do a lot of things to cleanse your data. MP3 data is really, really, really bad. Typically really bad. It just says it's ready. How do I disable that? All right, settings. Oop, up, in-game overlay. I see it. Back. Let's hope in-game overlay. It's disabled. Let's hope this keeps it going. All right. We can still see the screen. It's still updating for now. So data is very dirty. Think about how artists are. You have the Beatles, right? Sometimes you'll see it as the Beatles. Other times you'll see it as Beatles. No matter how it comes in, you want it to display the same. You want one group called Beatles or the Beatles. Doesn't matter, but you need everything under that. And you want it to show up in B's, not T's, even if you have it the Beatles. You're never going to look under does to find all these things. Your brain doesn't work that way. So I do a lot of things to normalize, remove lots of nonsense from your stuff if you have weird things in there, lowercase things, and just get it into a nice fashion. If the first character, once I clean it up, is not a character, I put them all under the number sign. Else, they go by their own character. And by doing character instead of just the English alphabet, it lets people in foreign countries have their accent marks if they want with or different localizations. You get actual Chinese and Japanese characters, which is really cool to have those characters, not just American English only. So I clean that data up. And by passing in just the title, it will normalize the name, autofill out that index character, and take care of things for us. We also want to make sure, I think I called this public string track ID. Actually, we don't need it. All right, so we're going to jump back over to the item detail. Not item detail, items. So normally I wouldn't do this in my view models. It's the worst place ever. We'll bring in a music manager later to deal with this, but for now, we're just going to bring our Google songs in. Now, what I want to do is var songs equals might be frozen. We are in, let's just refresh it. Refresh it anyway. So painful. All right. Yeah, it's really strange. I did a test stream last week and it was solid. Okay, I'll try different USB ports later. That's really weird that the USB port would be the issue. All right, so we're back. We have songs. I'm going to do, it's not really JSON anymore, but let's do .to, actually, yeah, we'll do JSON.toList. Whoa, what just happened? I just lost Visual Studio, just crashed on me. All right, let's bring that back up. Hey, another follower. Thank you. Exciting. I wonder why I have a zombie as my follower thing. I wonder if I was supposed to set that up somehow, and I didn't. Zombies are cool though. Who doesn't like zombies? All right. So let's jump back into our item details. Oh, zombies is the default. Nice. Doesn't like zombies though. All right. Songs. We're going to do JSON.toList. I'm going to do the command option space to just bring in the link stuff for me. Oops. And now we'll just do new song, and we're going to pass in x dot artist. And it's complaining about something. Does anyone see what I did wrong? Oh, select, then to list it. All right, so now we have, actually, we're not going to list it. We'll do that when we're inserting. All right, so for now, I'm just going to do database dot, oh, no, not that one. Using data is, I'm changing all the namespaces as I move things over, so if I forget to do that, it causes issues. All right, so now I have database.main.insert or replace. That's something that I added as well as an extension because I just wipe data out all the time. Your local cache, in my opinion, should just be local cache. I should be able to kill at any point, at least with the song database. All right, so now we have insert or replace all songs. Now that's going to just download our songs and get them all into the database. There's one other class I'm going to jump over here and grab for our view models. It's a simple database source. It's inside the sample repo for simple database, which is on my GitHub, and it's also going to be in this repo. This lets us do a really nice little list view model thing that make our view models really, really simple. Since this thing used items, it just makes lets us easily use simple database as a source. So I will say simple database source. And we're going to call this songs because it's a list of songs. And the name is wrong, I know. We're just going to go with that. It's .main, and we're still updating. I keep checking that as much as I remember. All right, now the simple database source, it implements iNotify collection change, and it's an iList. It also supports grouping. So if groupings, we'll turn it off for now. Yeah, I have two screens, so I can see it if I'm paying attention. It's hard to watch two screens at once. And I do have the live stream on my main screen as well, but it's so delayed that by the time I notice, it's gone, or it's too late. It shouldn't be something on the Mac because the Mac is just HDMI out. So it's the source on the Windows machine because I'm not changing anything. All right, so now that I insert data into the database, where was I? I'm in the view model view. Yay! All right, so now let's go items dot, what do I call it? Collection. No, it's not collection changed. It is refresh data. That's what I call it. So we're going to insert the data and then we're going to refresh it. I don't want to refresh until the data is in, just because we don't want that same glitch we had before. We'll watch how much faster this will insert and display. Should be fast. And as I mentioned, this was like 1,000 songs. Maybe it's 10,000. I don't remember. I have two of these JSON lists. All right, so songs is, that is 10,000. So that's really big. It's funny, this was the small one. Yeah, I have a 20,000 one then too as well. All right, so we insert the data. Don't want that breakpoint there. It crashed. Aha, I do this every time. All right. The exception was I didn't set the ID, which is the primary key. You can't insert into the database with the primary key if you don't have a primary key. So ID equals, for now, we'll just concatenate the title and the artist. For real gMusic, I bring a lot more in, and we'll bring the real data models over because albums and live albums and all those need to be separate. But for now, combination of those two should be unique enough for this test subset. Run this puppy again. Run, run, run. Okay, we've downloaded the data. We're going to insert into the database. It's inserted. You see how much faster that was. Oh, we're frozen. Okay, that didn't fix it, James. Didn't fix it. All right, we should be back now. All right, so it refreshed the data. Now, as soon as I press play, okay, hopefully that's the live data. I can't tell. The best way to tell is let's actually fill out that main page. Right now it is to text. Let's change it to actually name. Inside of media base item, it's called name and artist. Huh. Yeah, Slack me those threads later. That'll be very useful to look into. It's weird that my stream worked perfectly the other day, and now it's not, and I don't know. All right. Yay. Okay, so let's look at, I'm actually going to do Opensim. I have this program I've installed called Opensim. It's really useful. It's on GitHub. And it lets me open up the sandbox for my apps. So I can just jump into here. I can now go into the app for this one. I can go into the libraries where my database lives, and I can open this using what's it called? Database, SQLite database browser. So I can browse my data, make sure that we have items. Is this the right one? This doesn't look right because I haven't done any of that yet. This is not the right one. Let's delete this database just to make sure we're dealing with the right one. Move to trash. Let's stop, start again. But this thing is really useful to pick the running phone and jump in. All right, so this should, yeah, and on top of that, my thing's not even showing data right away. It totally worked last time. All right, so we should have data. Got the database, got some, hey, look, we have lots of songs in there. Not quite 10,000 because they're not all unique. Like I said, there's live tracks and things like that when you're just using artist and title. All right, so that should work. So we should have data, and we're not. Let's go back over to here. This is bound to items. Is that what I named it here? Items, perfect. You don't have to make those public, do you? I'm gonna do it anyway. All right, so we'll make that public. That should be bound now. Let's jump into the simple database source and just make sure things are getting hit. Actually, it should show all that loading. And let's jump into this refresh data as well. Make sure stuff's going right. Refresh data just says collection changed. Invoke. Collection change is not set. We are not hooked in. That binding's not hooked in. It should have been because it was working for the other one. You know what? That doesn't make sense. Anyone on the stream know what I'm doing wrong there? Very, very weird. Okay, so let's do something. It is frozen again. This is insane how fast it's freezing. I wonder if I had on a different USB port last time. Refresh every 3 minutes. That's no big deal. I can do that while I stream. Yeah, maybe I'll just have to run this for like an hour ahead of time and make sure I still have stuff. Totally easy to do when I'm not caring about it. All right. So I have this list and it refreshes, calls that. For some reason, Forms is not hooking into my collection changed, which it should. Because I'm implementing iNotify collection change, which is what those hook into. Let me grab something from the old one in case I'm doing something wrong. Views, items page. I probably won't be doing that, but same thing. This is my own version of that. It should tie into that. It just is tied to a database instead. So there's no reason it shouldn't work. Items page. Yeah, the binding I used the same binding we had before. Binding, I just added in my grouping stuff, which I wasn't going to do yet. Items refreshed. Collection changed is null. Do I need to do something for like two-way bindings? I didn't when I tried this yesterday. Refresh enabled. No, that's one way. Binding items. All right, so what if I in here for the bindings, where was that at? Let's just change this to two-way. It is correct, I know. Equals two-way, and it's public. You shouldn't have to be public. It uses reflection. Public this. This implements. It has to be public? Well, I made it public, so we should have had data already. Notice that my simple source, if we go into it, maybe I'm messing something up. Let's just go into my source. Check one more thing. Oh, it needs a get. You are right. Did I? Let me. I did that wrong. It does not have a get. All right. Thank you. I'm totally blind and couldn't see that. Now it should work. We're at the time I wanted to get to, but I wanted to get farther than this. All right, hey, and we're loading indexes. Yay. And we have an exception. I don't know what that exception is. It has to do with, I know what that exception is. I just switched it to grouped mode and didn't switch our database source to grouped, so it's freaking out. That's really easy to fix. View model. All right, so we're going to set this back to grouped. All right, and then we're going to review the code we've done so far, and the stream froze. I'm just going to look over every time I build because I've got to wait anyway. Hey, instantly we had songs, and it refreshes. So we'll delete the database, and we're going to watch it without breakpoints. Run. Let's remove all breakpoints. Isn't there? Under. I don't see it. Oh well, we're just going to press play. All right, actually before I press play, I want to delete the database. All right, so let's go in here. We're going to kill the database. And let's run this puppy. To start out, it'll have no songs. It refreshes, it inserts the songs, and we have songs. That was 10,000 songs in forms, and we have smooth scrolling as well as quick jumping. Now, all we had to do to enable that, aside from getting our code correct, is inside the items view model. I just had to insert stuff in the database, and I don't do this here. This is not where I do it. Whenever I do update the database, you will need to call on the simple database source, tell it that it refreshed. So I create a simple database source, tell it which type of data it is so it knows what table to pull it out of. I tell it what database I'm going to pull from. And then inside of my classes, I just put the group by and the order by. And magic, it instantly will pull those out in that grouped fashion. If I don't want to group them, I can turn off grouping. There are plenty of instances inside of gMusic where we're not going to group it. When you're looking at an album list view, they're all the same album. You're not going to group them by track number or something weird like that. I'm just going to order them in that case by number. And we can override these order bys and the group bys, and we will do that later. We're going to override things too. So a playlist doesn't sort by this. This is just the default sort by, where you sort by the index of the playlist, things like that. So, but for just alphabetical things right out of the box, let's just for kicks, let's build one more screen before we go. Let's add an artist screen just to make sure this thing works. So we're going to do file new, or let's add a new view. We're going to do a Xamarin.Forms content page, XAML. All right, yay. All right, so we have, oh, I should have named it. Let's delete this and do it again. I want to name it artist page. All right, one more try. Add new file, forms content page. Artist page. All right, so we have an artist page. I am going to be lame and go steal a bunch of code. Actually, I don't like that it's a stack layout inside of that. Is that for the spinner? I don't know. We're still just going to grab this. I'm just going to grab the list view. That's all we need. All right, so artist page, we're just going to throw a list view in here. And instead of dealing with the binding context, Items list view, we'll leave it there, that's fine. In here, I'm just going to be lazy. Instead of creating a view model, we are going to just do simple database source. It's coming to using simple database source. Let's add that, and this one's going to be called, we don't have an artist yet, do we? Let's be nice and awesome and go steal it from the old models. We're just gonna, this is probably gonna blow up because I've got lots of extra stuff on there. Yeah, artwork. Kill that. And kill that. And kill this. We'll come back to this stuff later and fix it all later. All right. Yay. We have an artist. And we're not localizing yet. We'll deal with that later too. All right, so perfect artist. So now let's just jump over back to our artist page. We have an artist page. We have an artist. And it's from gMusic models. View model. And this thing really is our view model, let's be honest. New simple auth data page. All right. Actually, I need to let's not forget that. Actually, I'm going to bind it differently anyway. Whoa, why'd that erase? Public and view model equals new. Right. Refresh. Refresh. Ah! So infuriating. All right, is this thing not public? Go to declarations. Yeah, it is. I want to see why that's complaining. All right, it's saying I'm doing something wrong. Required formal parameter connection of, oh, I don't pass in the, yes. Database dot main would help to actually spell database, right? All right, so we have our database in there. We have our view model. Now let's jump into this artist page, name, and I can't remember what I call it. We're just going to call it, I don't know, name norm, so you can see what that looks like. We'll really fill this out later. And for this, it is by default, not that. By default, the binding context of everything is itself. So I should be able to go into here and just say binding context. That's what I call it, right? Making sure I'm not crazy. Call it view model. Let's fix casing. Okay. Let's run this. Uh-oh. That one's not happy. Hey, yeah, there's that detail text. I knew I had a detail text. But everything's not filled out for it yet. Build error. Event handler. Oh, there's an event handler that we did not bring over. And it has all this refresh stuff hooked up, which doesn't exist, so hopefully it doesn't get mad at us for not using that. Let's run it. Oh, and I should actually add this into our screen, shouldn't I? Let's go to main page. It has tab children. Let's add a new one of these called artist. And oh, I did something wrong. Let's paste this thing right. All right, so navigation page about. We're gonna just enter, put artist, and we'll leave that there. Oh, it has an S. Has an S. Run again. Let's hope it doesn't blow up. And we have no data. Do I have to do dot slash? It's right. Let's just jump into for now. Items list view dot binding context equals new equals this, because I want to make sure it's this, and then the binding thing is to view model. That should work. I hope. No such table artist. That's exactly what we'd expect, because I didn't actually deserialize all the data. We don't even have artists in there. But hey, it's working now. One more thing before we close. Let's just grab over a lot of things, and let's see if we can get this thing to sync for real. And if it can, we'll have artists without doing anything else. Copy all this stuff. Make sure I copy it to the right one. Oops, and I also need APIs, data, helpers. I'll show you what we pull over. It's nothing too magical. And we'll just copy these over to here. We're going to replace all. Oh, one's called helper and one's called helpers. All right, we are going to delete this one because I don't call it that. Remove, delete. Let's hope this builds. Oh, and it needs punch clock. Let's add punch clock really quick. I love punch clock. I just hate that it brings over all of reactive. Okay, punch clock. Punch clock is a little task management thing that makes sure that you don't run too many of the same type of tasks at the same time. So since I'm syncing a lot and I can sync from multiple providers, lots of different services, I want to make sure I only have like one or two syncing at a time. So punch clock makes sure of that they can all just take turns. Oh, I need localizations. One more library, guys. So my localizations library is what this is it's where I have all my internationalization stuff. So this will let us just get out string data. So we'll go to localizations, songs. What does songs mean and how does that translate for each language? So it's just how I localize things. Put it all into one project and edit references, add localizations. Now it should build. It's okay if we go a little over. We had all that rough start, so. Okay, this one doesn't exist anymore. So now what we'll do is instead of all of this, we will await, we're gonna do, instead we'll create a music manager. As I mentioned, I do everything as music managers. So now music manager. Is that not what it's called? Managers. Oh, music provider. That's what it is. I need the Google Music Provider. Google. Maybe next stream we'll just spend some time and really go through what each of these things are. Equals new Google Music Provider and new Google Music API. And push that one. And like I said, I always increment those things. All right, so now I should be able to do await Google Music Provider dot sync database. I thought it was called sync database. Music provider. Oh, I'm missing the root class of music provider. Let's also add this in. All right, that should fix it. So now this should have sync database. All right, so music provider, what it does is this deals with getting all of our data, how to add things to libraries, take things away. It deals with all of this processing track. So when I get something from Google, I have this full track data and I fill that out with all that flat file. So that way if I'm getting it from Dropbox or OneDrive or anywhere, I just put it into this full track data. And then the process of creating artists and albums and the artwork and linking all that together is now done inside this music manager or this music provider. It deals with it for all of them. It even deals with inserting all that into the database and then dealing with offline. There's lots of things with offline support. It deals with aggregate data. An artist has a song count. I'm actually running SQL queries because that's faster than pulling it into memory and then just to update stuff. So I can run SQL queries against the database saying, hey, set the song count for artists, so how many songs they have, where the artist ID matches the song count ID. So I can get, oh, this artist has 5, this album has 10 tracks, things like that. So this deals with all of that magic. Which is really nice. And it can also say, hey, here's an API, delete it, and now remove all of the data from that API or that music provider. So it just deals with all that overhead. The Google Music API is filled out a little bit more. It now has all the things to properly sign in and actually get music. So now if I run this, we'll sync that API. Let's delete this database because that database is going to be full of nonsense from our old fake API. Yeah, let's run it. It should now sync that database. Once that syncing is done, it'll call that refresh. We'll be able to then switch to the artist screen and see artist data. I copied over the database one, right? Because that should have uncommented all of my classes. Yes. All right. Hey, it needs me to sign in. Really quick, I'm going to sign in. So let me hide my screen. Or I could just wait for it to freeze, and then you couldn't see anyway. It actually looked frozen, so you're not missing anything. All right, I am logging in, and this is going to use real data. It's logged in. Let's bring you guys back. Hey, it logged in and actually shows me data. Yay! Now if I go to artist, it blew up. Index was out of range. Index is out of range. What did I do wrong there? All right, well, I blew something up. There's some index out of range inside of artists. Let me try one more. Let's see if we can see what's actually going on in there. Why is it making, oh, on the simulator, it makes you log in every single time if you don't code sign it. Total bug with the iOS keychain. It's been there forever. I will code sign this next time so I don't have to keep doing this. Actually, I don't have to log in. We'll just cancel because we don't care. We have data. All right, so let's see if we can see what's causing that crash really quick. Actually, let's just click on it and see if it crashes, and we'll check the stack and see where it blew up. No, hey, it worked that time. I should have paid attention. It might have been it was trying to use old stale data. It didn't refresh. I didn't call the refresh on it. But yeah, now we have, that's the old artist though. We have way more artists. Oh no, this is a small account. It only has a few songs, a few artists. So our artist screen was really easy to add. It's ugly, really ugly. But we were able to aggregate that data just by a few lines of code. We have this artist screen, which has a list view and says, here are the 2 things that we care about. And you can see how the normalized data shows up. But it just says, hey, these are things we care about. We can actually do this to display string now. We start and stop that, it should tell us a lot more data about them. Like I think the display data shows how my headset disconnected. I think that's my cue I've been going over, and technical difficulties are just going to keep coming. So I did the wrong binding. Might have just been detail string. I can't remember. But yeah, overall, really, really easy using simple database and simple auth to build this app. The amount of code that I do write to do the login, the syncing is pretty crazy in this because the data I'm dealing with, but the actual making the API calls and making sure people are logged in and authenticated. Yeah, see, so missing entitlements error, which I can't make bigger. That is the keychain freaking out. That's what it does. Don't know why it does that, but it does. Bug since like iOS 9. But I was quickly able to get that. It's not showing, but inside of our database, if I reopen that, it's really easy to just sync data, put it into the database, and then let it deal with grouping and pulling that data out for us really, really quickly. Even with large amounts of data, in this one it's 51 songs. Other accounts have 20,000 songs that I used to test, and instantly 20,000 songs scroll nice, beautifully and smooth, and it works. So hopefully before the next stream, I will figure out these audio issues, update some drivers, I guess. Hope my screen, it's not even refreshing right now as I'm showing that off. It's killing me. All right, but I'm going to hopefully fix that, show this off a little bit more. Thanks everyone for coming in. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It really threw off my groove a few times and made this way harder than it should have been. So I'll get those sorted out before the next one. On the next one, I want to, now that I copied over a bunch of the files to where I now have real data to deal with, we can look through some of those of how do those managers work. We can work on flushing out more of the UI. I'd like to try and do the dual master detail next stream. So we'll have the move the navigation to the left and get the now playing screen and just try to fill out more of the UI. If we get more of the UI going, we can probably jump on to more exciting things like redoing some of my music provider stuff. I don't like the design of my music provider, so we'll rework that and we'll look deeper into that. My audio engine was at first tied a little bit heavier to platform specific stuff. I separated some of that out, getting it working, but I want to rework a lot of my audio playback and things like that. So we'll dive into some deeper, more technical things once we get through the UI and have something up and working. Thanks everyone for joining in. Like I said, hopefully next time a lot more smooth. I'll do my best to get it a little bit better. If you have any questions or anything else, feel free to get in contact with me. Ask questions. I'll push this up to GitHub so everyone can look through and see what's up there. And we'll just keep working on this next week. Thanks, guys.